positive. Always look on the bright side of
one bad movie at a time.
Welcome to Your Movie Rocks, an alternate ending podcast where all movies are great movies.
Even the cult ones?
Especially the cult ones. I'm your host, Mandy Albert, and my guest this month is Andrew Milne, one of our first repeaters. Andrew, how you doing this morning, afternoon? What even is it for you?
I'm doing good, Mandy. It's 2:30 in the afternoon here, which means here in Scotland we've got maybe another hour of daylight. So let's make it count, shall we?
Yes, let's make it count by keeping you inside recording a podcast.
That's it. Absolutely. But light's beautiful, so it keeps me engaged.
Sounds great. Okay, so we have a very special episode planned of Your Movie Rocks this month. And of course, every episode is special, but this one's a little bit more special, maybe, for reasons that will become very clear momentarily. But first, if you are not familiar with how the show works, for every show, my guest assigns me a movie to watch and we discuss the movie. Just like the 10,000 other movie podcasts you listen to, except that there's a catch. No matter what, I am only allowed to say nice things about the movie. My guest can say whatever they want, but me? Only nice things. And furthermore, only sincere nice things, not I loved it when my 4-year-old started screaming and I had to turn off the movie momentarily. If I have nothing nice to say, I'm lying because every movie does something right. So, Andrew, what have you inflicted upon me this month?
Okay, Mandy. So this month, this is actually a movie I talked about with Brennan and Cameron on the movie roundtable a few months back. This is Despiser, the dark fantasy action horror epic directed by Philip J. Cook, also written, edited, shot. I believe a couple of voice roles also from Philip J. Cook. And it's a lot of movies. So just for this week, we decided to break from format this month, and we decided to bring on someone a little bit more qualified to shed light on Despiser and what it's all about than either of us are. And we found just such an individual, namely Philip J. Cook. Welcome to the show, Phil. How are you doing today?
Good fun. Nice to meet you both.
Nice to meet you too. But yes, as you heard correctly, we do have the director of Despiser, Philip J. Cook, on the podcast to discuss Despiser with us this month, about which we are extremely excited. So this would normally be the part where Andrew tells me all about what this movie is. But Phil, I think we're going to turn that role over to you. So can you tell us a little bit about not just what Despiser is, but maybe some about how Despiser came to be as well?
Sure. I started making movies back in the mid-'80s. I was like 24 years old, and we made a sci-fi film called Beyond the Rising Moon. It has a number of titles, Outer World and whatever. And back then we did private investment, and we raised money from doctors and lawyers. And we shot this really elaborate sci-fi film that everybody said, you're never going to get it distributed. We shot it in Virginia, not Hollywood. And we did get it distributed. We got it on the Sci-Fi Channel. And it was hard, but, hey, we got it out there. And we thought, oh, boy, Hollywood's going to come calling now. Of course, it doesn't work that way. Crickets. So like a year and a half later, it's like, well, let's try it again. So we couldn't raise as much money the first time. We raised half as much money the second time and shot a movie called Invader, all on film, right? This is all old school film, old school technology from the 80s and 90s. And we shot half the movie on a military base and thinking, wow, we'll cut half of it together and then it'll be easy to raise the rest of the money. It was not. So we spent like a year trying to come up with money to finish the movie, and we couldn't do it. So eventually got on an airplane, flew to LA, to the American Film Market, which is this big film market that takes place in Santa Monica, California. This is like 1989. And crashed the film market because I couldn't afford, again, this is 1989, the $400 day pass. So I forged a badge in a Burger King, made up a company that sounded like existed, that maybe you heard of that didn't exist, and I created my company called Eagle Films in a Burger King. And forged this badge and crashed the American film market and started walking around. And everybody said, kid, no way in hell you're going to get this movie finished. We had a VHS tape of half the movie. We had all kinds of great photos, and everybody said, no, no, no. Eventually, we wandered into Menachem Golan's office. And if everybody knows who Menachem Golan is, he was Canon Films.
As in Golan and Globus, Menachem?
Golan and Globus. They were brothers.
Canon Films, those guys.
That's it, right. So they did Missing in Action, Death Wish, all these things. And I wandered into his office at the last, literally like the 11th hour of the market on the last day. And he said, he's not here. Can you leave your tape? And of course, back in the day, I have a tape. One tape. And you know, when you give something up, it's like, I will never see it again, but hey, what the hell, right? This is it. Come back in 45 minutes. I come back 45 minutes later, he's watching it. And he comes in and says, I love this movie. And if you know what Menachem Golan looks like, think of Jabba the Hutt. Menachem Golan is a human incarnation of Jabba the Hutt. Just look him up, see an interview, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. He said, come in, tell me, how much money do you need to finish this picture? And my partner and I really thought we needed $50,000, but I realized, oh, he's interested. So I blurted out $175,000. And he said, okay. And we walked out. We had a contract a week later. Like, this doesn't happen. Like, this is the sort of stuff you make up. Anyway, he gave us money to finish the film. And, you know, you may have heard peculiar stories about Menachem, his business practices and whatever. He was always straight with us. He was always honest with us. He always, you know, sometimes it took some nagging and things, but he finished our movie. He got our movie finished. Invader. That movie was called Invader. And he got it all over the world. He got it on Showtime and HBO and Cinemax and whatever. And so we made that film thinking, oh, this is it. They're going to come calling now. And I was going to direct a movie for Menachem in Israel and with Michael Paré. And we were talking with Mark Hamill. It was going to be this sort of Navy SEAL rescue thing. I wrote the story called Covert Strike, and we're all going to go. And then his company, again, went bankrupt. And that was the end of that. So it crashed and burned. And then perhaps you can relate to this as well. Then I started having kids, and we're in Falls Church.
I know how that works.
That was our first link. Oh, maybe we should go to LA. It's like, no, I don't think so. That's crazy. How many people go to LA and actually make it? They always come home with their tail between their legs. So I didn't make a movie for 10 years, right? I was done, finished. And then all of a sudden the digital revolution started. And my background was visual effects and animation. Mm-hmm. We did a lot of all the early MTV ads. Everything we did back in the day from a visual effects standpoint, was with puppets and glass paintings and physical things that you were putting in front of the camera. And then this apocalyptic event happened when a movie came out called Jurassic Park with digital dinosaurs. And it was an extinction event for the visual effects industry. It's like, oh my God, they're making dinosaurs in a computer. Like the whole art form that we had spent our lives developing was out the window.
An extinction event. I see what you did there.
And it was terrifying, right? So, well, I guess that's that. So I'm in a bookstore in Tyson's Corner, which is not far from where I live in Falls Church, Virginia, and I see a book on the shelf that says, you too can do 3D animation at home. It's like, what? And I opened up the back cover, and there were two 4.5-inch floppy disks. Do people remember floppy disks?
Oh, yeah.
1.44 megabytes of data. And there were two 1.44 megabytes of data, floppy disks. And I went home, and I plugged these two disks into my computer and loaded them up on my 386 computer. It's like, holy crap, you can do computer animation on your home PC. Now, mind you, these two floppy disks, I have a camera now that shoots 400 of these frickin' floppy disks per second to show you how much data has evolved in this amount of time. It'd be like being hit with a machine gun blast of floppy disks. But so I taught myself computer animation. And as a result of that, it's like, oh my God, there's this whole new tool. Because I'd written a screenplay before Invader called The Road. The Road is Despiser. That was its earlier title. But I didn't want to make it as a low-budget film, so we made Invader instead. And here it is 10 years later. I can't raise any money. I've still got the screenplay, but now I've got some digital technology. I could shoot this digitally on Betacam. If anybody knows, it was this old definition video format. And you know what? I'm going to do this like Babylon 5. And I'm going to create this feature by myself, pretty much, me and a handful of people using digital technology. And so I convinced my wife, hey, we're going to go off and make another movie, but this time with less money, fewer resources than ever. And that movie became Despiser. So we spent 2 years, we shot that in 1998, in the Christmas of 1998. And then a buddy of mine, Corey Collins, who also had built the same piece of software with those 2 1.5 or 4-inch floppy disks, found a friendship, because this is the dawn of the internet now. All of a sudden, you're meeting people in online forums, and you realize, oh God, this guy's in the same piece of software I am. We struck up a friendship, and we never met each other, but now all of a sudden we're working on this monster movie, Despiser, and he created the Despiser in 3D, and between the two of us, we were doing the visual effects on this thing. So long and the short, it took 2 years in post, digitally produced film, shot on Betacam, and when we got it done, same thing, right? Who's going to release your film? Everybody said no. Eventually, I reached out to a filmmaker friend, so kind of a mentor of ours, named Don Dohler, if anybody knows who that is. He was making these really low-budget sci-fi films in the 70s and 80s that sort of broke out. He did Night Beast and Alien Factor and what have you. And he suggested a distributor who used to work for Errol's, which was a big video store back in the 90s. Sure. And he had left Errol's and started his own company. And he got it out on home video in every Blockbuster store and Hollywood Video Store, if people remember that. And then and then he put me in touch with a British distributor, and he handled all the international. And when Despiser came out, this is before 300, this is before Sky Captain, where you had these digital virtual reality films. And I don't think people knew what the heck to make of Despiser, because it didn't feel like a movie. It was this weird hybrid video game, video look, digital thing. And they're just like, I don't think they knew what to make of it. And it's because back then there was such a distinctive difference between soap opera, which was shot on video, and motion pictures. Everybody knew, they didn't know why, but they knew one looked cheap and one looked cinematic. And there were a whole bunch of technical reasons why that was. It wasn't just because it was low budget. It was a higher frame rate and such. And Despiser kind of had that video vibe because of the higher frame rate, since film was shot at 24 frames per second. Video back then was 30 frames per second. And now, of course, frame rates don't mean anything. It's almost as if, like, we had a 100-year tradition of programming ourselves culturally, that 24 frames per second, which is the minimum number of frames you could have to create the illusion of motion. And it was also cheaper, right? You could do 30, and 30 looks cool, but it was too expensive. So you settled at 24 because that was just in the sweet spot of just enough to fake the illusion of motion. And so now we've programmed our culture into thinking, quality, 24 staccato
exactly
per second. We have 100 years of programming and our culture of that. And when people started going to higher frame rates, and more is better, right? No, we don't like it. If you saw the Hobbit movie at 48 frames per second, everybody hated it. And yet, technically speaking, why wouldn't it be better? It's a higher frame rate. People hate it. People don't like high frame rate motion pictures.
It's really funny. You're actually blitzing through all the sort of talking points that I'd had lined up just to bring up before this episode, because I was actually specifically going to call out the sort of Betamax and the Betacam. I apologize, sort of filming methods, and just how exactly like James Cameron and Peter Jackson have been trying to push this sort of higher frame rate formats in theaters, and it seems to have been met with this sort of widespread rejection. And what I find really fascinating about Despiser is, like, it kind of feels, in a strange way, appropriate watching it here in 2025, because because the film is set in this kind of surrealistic, hyper-real alternate reality, and the contrast between the kind of the high frame rate and this highly digital effects, it gives it this kind of surrealism and hyper reality that when you're looking at it, you don't know quite what to do with it. The brain just doesn't know quite how to make sense of it, which I feel kind of enhances the effect of it in a in a strange sort of medium is the message kind of way.
Yeah, well, my thinking of it all along was we wanted to give people a good time. And my big thing is the greatest sin any movie, or particularly a low budget movie, can make is to be boring. And I didn't want it to be that. And it's like anything, you know, when we started out with motion pictures, they you know, back in George Milne and Trip to the Moon, it was more of an incarnation of stage plays being documented by motion picture cameras. And or when you go to the theater, you know, these people are on a stage or in a black box theater, but you're there to suspend disbelief, to get immersed in the story. And look, we all know we're in a theater with a bunch of people watching these people on stage. And so my feeling about Despiser was if you were invested in the story and you could relate to the characters and then just have fun with the whole thing. Is it real? No. I don't even, when people say it doesn't look real, I don't even know what that means when it comes to movies. Since when is a movie real?
Yeah.
Well, it's like, oh, that's more realistic. Really? Were you there at D-Day when Steven Spielberg stormed the beaches of Normandy? I mean, it felt more realistic. You mean it felt like combat camera footage? Yeah, no, I get that. So
in this particular case, I find that a particularly odd criticism because, like, it doesn't look real. Oh, does it look very different from when you were in Purgatory?
That's exactly my point. You know, it's this thing also, I get this pushback. When they started doing digital spaceships versus miniature spaceships. Oh, no, it was much better when they did it with miniatures. It's like, wait, what? Like, what does that mean, right? One's a toy, don't get me wrong, a beautifully constructed piece of art that's flying around, and another one is a digital creation. They're both a huge suspension of disbelief. Now, whether or not one appeals to you because you love the idea of toys flying through space, which of course people tend to, or digital is like, to me, like, did you buy it or not? Was it a cool design? Did it go left or right? Did it execute the plot point that it needed to be? It's like, anyway, that's all. I could rant on that for a while.
When you said Babylon 5 during your introduction, I don't know if you could see my face, but my heart just sang. Number one, because I love Babylon 5. And number two, because I have Babylon 5 written in my notes about 20 times from when I was watching
Babylon
the film.
5. I was so excited when that show came out and everybody were criticizing, oh, the spaceships don't look real. Again, it's like, what? They're cool. They're these weird shapes with these weird colors. It's like, I've never seen that before. What, more real than the Starship Enterprise, which was a beautifully constructed 4-foot model? I mean, what are you guys talking about? Are you in the story or not? Babylon 5 is such a great, that production paradigm so inspired me because I was seeing the work they're doing. It's like, oh my God, I could do this. These tools, people don't realize what is possible. This is again back in 98. Now everybody kind of realizes you can almost do anything now. But back then it's like, no, you don't realize what power has been given us. And it was hard back then. I mean, really, really, really hard because the tools weren't up to, the computers weren't up to it. And there was no path to do it. So we were kind of, going into unknown territory. But Babylon 5 was such a source of inspiration because also by embracing, having come from a film background, if you guys probably don't, doing compositing on film is a nightmare of epic proportions. There are all kinds of mechanical issues. There's film weave, there's grain, there's expansion, inconsistency of color, it's chemistry. Every time you get a strip of film and run it through chemistry, it comes out looking different. And so to add something in post, it's like, well, it worked today, but for whatever reason, the thing pasted on top now skews green because somebody let the chemicals cool an extra half a degree, and now the composite doesn't work anymore. And when you enter the digital world, there is no film weave, right? Zeros and ones. Yeah. It's there or it's not. And it just opened up an ability to control, because you're limited by what you can pull off on the set, because I don't have the resources, the manpower, the money, and what have you. It's like, man, all right, fine. I'll put that stuff in after the fact. Because in the end of the day, I need to get my passionate actors saying their lines. That was the most important thing. I got to get the people saying their lines. And then I will put in whatever I need to afterwards to sell the illusion that they're in this space. And so that was, Despiser was a huge experiment. And I got to tell you, I really felt it was a failure for 20 some years. It's like people don't get it. You know, they crap on it. And back then it was easy to be trolled and you couldn't really research people. It's like, whatever, you know, it was that film that people loved to like dump on. And it hasn't been until I'd say the past 3 or 4 years that it's found its people.
Yeah. And I was going to bring this up. There was that episode of Corridor Crew, wasn't there? Just around this time last year where they sort of called out Despiser and they talked about it. I mean, they were critical, but they were also quite generous, I think, in the sort of appraisal of the effects and the technique and also the milieu that you were working in back in. Because I mean, principal photography was, as you say, 1998. So not even before Sin City, before 300. It's also before the Phantom Menace. It's also before The Matrix. So I think Corridor Crew kind of. It seems like they kind of gave a bit of a boost to this film sort of almost 20, 25 years after the fact.
Well, those guys, I think, got it because I think they actually even said it. Because it's funny, all of a sudden, my phone started blowing up. I said, oh my God, Corridor Crew just did Despiser. And I thought, oh, here it comes. It's going to be a tsunami of hate. They got it because those guys, they started out when they were like 16 years old, doing the same thing I'm doing. I just got an 8-year head start on them. And so it's like, oh my God, this is the stuff we were struggling with, you know, back in the day. And here's this old dude who was basically kind of doing what we're doing now, but he was doing it 20 some years earlier. I think from that sort of DIY, like, wow, that took some balls to get that thing out there, even though we can sit there and go, it looks like crap, or it doesn't look like crap, or you suspend disbelief, or you don't suspend disbelief. I think for the most part, they were reasonably sympathetic.
The whole looks like crap versus doesn't look like crap argument honestly feels, for a lot of the reasons you've already said, like a bit of a moot point here. Because I think that especially now when, like, you know, CGI has become the tool of the big budget blockbuster, where it's like, let's have a race to see how much of our movie can be artificially constructed. I think where it starts to really get on people's nerves is actually the more realistic, in giant square quotes, that filmmakers try to get with it. And it's not real, and you can't make it real, and it's never actually going to fool people into thinking that it is something real. And I think that audiences actually don't like feeling like they're being tricked in that way. I don't know that people articulate it that way, but it almost feels like filmmakers are trying to pull a fast one on you when it's like, we're making these real worlds, but they entirely exist in computers, which, like, no, in that case, they're not real worlds. Whereas the world of Despiser is so consciously artificial. Like when you said video game, I was going to call Andrew out because I think, Andrew, you officially have a type for this show after 2 movies. And your type is movies that are actually video games that I don't have to play, which is my favorite kind of video game because I'm terrible at video games. But you would never mistake this for something taking place in real life, both because it doesn't look that way and it surely isn't designed to look that way. And because the movie itself is so much about transcending limitations, both in a meta kind of sense, but also in its story.
Exactly. I mean, I think Gordon even says in his first it's actually a scripted line that Mark Redfield gets when he first appears in Purgatory, is this all looks so dreamlike, so surreal. So it's all sort of there in the text that this is the surrealism is not being hidden from us. You know, it's not it's all there on the surface. And I think people kind of appreciate that. And I think that's a big part of what's led to Despiser's kind of rediscovery. It occurs to me we should probably talk about what the actual story is here.
I was going to, in fact, ask you to do that because now we've started talking about elements of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is a premise that can only sort of be prefaced with the just telling listeners, if you're not familiar with Despiser already, like buckle up. You're gonna be want to be sitting down for this one because it's a lot.
It's the story of a graphic artist who's not particularly successful, and his wife is getting frustrated with them. And one evening, he ends up, well, she's going to leave him, and he's driving home having drank beer with a bunch of his buddies, and he crashes his car and dies and ends up in purgatory because he was trying to avoid two children are running across the highway in the middle of the night, and he avoids hitting them and crashes and dies, and he ends up in purgatory. And while he's there, he discovers a group of freedom fighters, people who have died in noble acts of self-sacrifice. One of them was a World War I vet. One is a Japanese kamikaze pilot. One is we don't go into their backstory. I did, but I cut it out of the movie. One guy saved a bunch of kids from a drowning bus. I forgot what Charlie's story was. It's been so long. Because I started taking things out because I felt it was getting a little too expositionary. Anyway, so he ends up teaming up with these freedom fighters who are trying to free souls trapped in purgatory because an alien being had crashed on Earth 100 years before, and because he was soulless, he ended up in purgatory, and he's trapped, and he's trying to escape his purgatorial prison back into the real world, and he thinks if he gathers nuclear weapons, this is a weird trans-dimensional half-Twilight world, gather nuclear weapons and blow his way out of his universe and be freed back into the real world as this sort of terrible menace. And our freedom fighters are basically, as we call them, God's hit squad, to go and air out the Despiser and send them packing. So having said that, it's this weird, surreal journey in a world that is sort of like, it's almost a multiverse or an alternate universe of ours, a world that, it has recognizable things. It's just weird, man. It's kind of hard. I'm not even sure I can explain it at this point. I've been so removed from it after all these decades, but it's just a weird romp of an adventure.
That it very much is.
I'm glad to hear you say it. I was really curious where some of the sort of influences, like maybe they're not even conscious, but like I was getting sort of notes of one thing that came to mind throughout was Dante's Inferno, because at one point we've also got Gordon's wife, Maggie, who also becomes sort of snared in this sort of like halfway dimension. And she sort of appears to him as this vision wearing this flowing white dress. And like I was getting very sort of Dante and Beatrice vibes from that. So I don't know if that's maybe sort of something in the collective unconscious there.
Definitely tapping into all of that. I mean, I've never seen a movie set in purgatory. I'm sure this doesn't align with anybody's coherent version of purgatory, whatever that is.
Sure.
I mean, quite frankly, we were just trying to tell a fun, wild story that you hadn't seen before. And, and these people are on a mission of self-discovery. And, it's a little philosophical in a sort of TV kind of vibe. I mean, it's almost kind of awkward talking about it now because I'm not entirely sure what I wrote this thing 35 years ago. Sure. And so now it's taken on its a life of its own at this point. It's kind of weird to even say that. Like, at a certain point when you live long enough, it's almost as if that was somebody else's life, if that makes any sense.
Like I 100% get that.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not sure I know who that guy was 30 years ago because I'm this guy now. My kids are grown, they're married. My kids are in the movie, by the way. They're the highway twins.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
They're the ones that Gordon dodges to end up in
my goodness.
purgatory at the first instance.
One of the highway twins is a lawyer now.
Oh, okay.
And the other highway twin is a music school teacher here in the District of Columbia. So,
good for them.
Marvelous.
So,
that's fantastic.
So, when people ask me these questions, like, I wish I had something deeper to say. It's like, I almost feel like an imposter talking about the story at this
Well, no, I
point.
kind of love this though, because, and I mean, Andrew and I are both writers, and we both certainly understand the idea of like your own stories kind of
Yeah.
getting away from you. Like they do things that you don't intend them to do when you start writing them. And every so
I'll tell
often,
you,
like when I show my own work to somebody and they'll say like, "Oh, this sounds like blah." And I'll think, well, I have no idea what blah is. I'm certainly going to go check it out now, but that was certainly not. And then it turns out that, we tend to tell a lot of the same stories. And Andrew, not to get pedantic at you, but actually to get pedantic at you, but by Inferno, I think you and the rest of the internet, in fact, mean Dante's Purgatorio, since Inferno is only one
True,
third of the
true,
Divine
true, true.
Comedy and the part not
It,
set in Purgatory. Purgatorio, to quote my own Dante teacher from back in college, is the part of the Divine Comedy that you only read if you're a Dante scholar, or if you happen to be taking a class taught by a Dante scholar.
you're really in the weeds.
Yes, you are.
that's it.
Purgatorio is actually my favorite part of the Divine Comedy. It doesn't get as hyped up as much as Inferno, because Inferno is the juicy one where Dante gets a mean girl on all the people he doesn't like, who amazingly end up in hell. But Purgatorio is, it takes place on a giant mountain that everybody is trying to climb, essentially. And its kind of core philosophical idea is that sin arises from love. So, like, love is the motivator of all sin. And so, like, it's imperfect love, because perfect love is the kind that gets you into paradise. But it's all like misdirected love or insufficient love or like loving the wrong things that get you into purgatory. So the people who were absent of love are the ones we find down in hell. The people who loved but imperfectly are the ones that we find in purgatory. And they basically have to struggle until their love becomes perfect. And I feel some of that echoed in the whole Gordon Maggie love story that takes place across this, is that in addition to, the struggle to free the trapped souls from the Despiser, there's also this much smaller struggle going on where the two of them kind of have to figure out how to love each other again after hitting a point of rock bottom in their relationship. What is her Gage
Maggie.
Sheridan? Is that the actress who plays
Yeah,
Maggie?
Gabe Sheridan. Yeah, yeah.
She's really good.
So funny. She and I went to high school together and didn't know it.
Oh, wow.
And then years later, I ended up casting her in a film. It's like, yeah, we graduated from the same high school, because she was the beautiful cheerleader and I was the invisible nerd freak, or whatever category of hell that I was in high school. And it's like, oh my God, you were the popular girl. No wonder we didn't know each other.
Oh,
You did
that's
a
so
great
funny.
job. Yeah.
That's such a great turnaround.
When you talk about writing, what I love is, like, coming for me, constructing the story is like, okay, I've got this new digital technology. I have these locations, these ideas, these physical things I can do. How can I make a movie out of that? So it starts with that first. And then it's like, okay, I can do some of this and this, and I can pull this off, and I think I can do this. But the most exciting part is when the characters hijack the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm not writing it anymore. They're telling me where to go. And I don't understand how that works, but I've, been privileged enough to have gone on this journey that has been written by the characters in these stories. And I don't even want to understand how that works. But,
That's it.
I think E. Howard said that about creating Conan too. He said Conan would visit him in the dead of night and stand over him with an axe and tell him what to write. Now,
That's
mine aren't
100%
that
it.
intense, but it's like these they take on a life of their own, and they take you on a journey. And without getting into the psychology, look, I don't know how it works. I'm just grateful that it takes you somewhere. But I love that part. And I've had stories of, oh, it's going to end this way, and then they end up in unexpected places. Like, I don't even know how the hell we got there, but I had to start here and chip my way through it. And that happened with this one, which was kind of fun.
I
Yeah.
mean, certainly as a viewer, I would have followed Carl Nimbus into hell.
Oh,
Okay.
that guy, when I met him, I did a lot of documentaries and such, and I met him, and I always remembered that guy on this, some cheesy promotional thing we were doing. And for like 2 or 3 years, I called him out of the blue and says, I got a character for you, man. And he was, and I said, we're still in touch. He's Still lives in.
This is Doug Brown, correct?
Doug Brown. Doug Brown was one of the most talented actors I've ever worked with, and a real privilege here in the DC area. And he's timeless. He looks exactly the same. I mean,
he's electrifying.
You look the same forever.
I was gonna say, like, he was one of the standouts for me among the cast. He plays this kind of he's I think a Baptist preacher. Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, not a Baptist preacher, but he was a Baptist. And it's funny because my dad grew up as a Baptist, and he married a Polish Catholic, which, of course, in his small Baptist town was just about the worst thing you possibly could have done. Until, of course, this charming Polish Catholic comes to the small town, Waxahachie, Texas, and charms them all, and all is forgiven. But I just love that idea of these people going, wow, Catholic. But they also like, okay, fine, you've got your belief system, I got my belief system. We can find a commonality. Let's get this job done.
Yeah, I love the line that Nimbus has to Gordon when they first encounter each other, and Gordon says, "Well, I was raised Catholic," and Nimbus just gets this look on his face like, "Oh, Catholic. Oh, well, that's okay." It's just a great. There's a really good comic beat just in the course of that scene.
He sold it. He sold that line. And it's, that's the other wonderful thing about working with such a great actor is you can write a line. Now, in that particular case, that was fairly, it was meant to be funny. But when they start injecting bits of their take on the character, I mean, they're saying exactly the same words, right? But all of a sudden they start saying it. It's like, oh my God, you've given this character a nuance that I didn't even realize was there by your consideration of it. And just by the way they give a particular line some weight, opens up a whole other aspect of the story that wasn't necessarily on the page. I mean, they are the same words, don't get me wrong. In the context, it's the same context, but by their gift as an actor have given an element to the story. It's like, oh my God, I love that. Like all of a sudden, something, I don't know, is relatable in a way that transcends the original material. Anyway.
That's got to be one of the most rewarding things about working with actors, but especially really strong actors, is just like you can see your own dialogue and you can think it works, but you don't know that it works until you actually hear somebody say it. And to hear your own lines land as well as they do coming out of Doug Brown.
I've had many experience either on a Zoom audition where I'm meeting actors for the first time, even though I haven't met them yet, but we're going because we don't have time to meet, or when I'm on the set behind the viewfinder because I shoot my own stuff, and they start saying these lines. I started like, oh my God, I'm going to cry. I'm shooting the thing because it's like, ooh, this hurts like it's supposed to hurt, right?
Yeah.
And it's written to hurt, but I'm there to get the day, right? I'm trying to just get the performance done. So I'm thinking practically, and all of a sudden I start getting seduced by the material that I'm watching through the viewfinder. Like, holy shit, this is actually working. It kind of sneaks up on you because I'm wearing so many hats. And then all of a sudden I'm a viewer experiencing this stuff for the first time through the viewfinder and being emotionally affected. It's very exciting, I got to tell you. Even on my little movie.
I think that's such a rewarding part of the creative experience because I've had that with sort of illustrators and narrators. Just hearing your own words spoken back to you, but taking a sort of new life just through somebody else's interpretation and their filtering your vision through their own process. And yeah, it's just such an infectious thing, and that's what I get from so much of Despiser is just it seems just so infectiously creative. Like there's just such joy taken in
absolutely
in every part of it.
Well, I would say we had a great time. It was a great crew of people. It was very difficult to schedule, but it was fun. I mean, there wasn't a single beat. There was one slightly testy beat where, which I love the story, and he ended up coming around good. We had this scene where Mark Redfield goes, "We're on a highway to hell," and he didn't want to say the line. he felt it was true. Like, no, Mark, trust me, it's a funny beat. No, Phil, I don't want to do it. It's like, no, trust me. And then he ended up doing it. I know what you're going to do. I said, well, do it two ways. One way you don't. I know how this works. You're going to pick the one you want. But in the end, it's like, never mind. I figured it out. Yes, it works. You were right. And, because he had a certain take on it. I had a take on it. And at a certain point, it just needed a levity beat. Kind of funny. But no, everybody loved it. It was fun. It was a fun picture. We had a great time making it. Freezing our butts off, man, in this unheated warehouse in the dead of winter.
So I saw the commentary track on the Blu-ray where you mentioned like it was because you were in the dead of winter that you were able to see the actors' breath in the opening scenes, which just adds such sort of like a dimension to those opening moments. It feels very. It's the kind of device you can't really get on a stage because a lot of these actors are sort of from a theatrical background, I think. But it's just these sort of subtle details that you don't necessarily get from from flatter lighting and flatter cinematography. It was just these kind of details add up.
That's fun. So the one actor who I've worked with for years, he has a small role in Despiser, Jeff the Jumper, the dude up on the ledge.
Yes.
It's funny. He and I have been working together on films ever since. But he said, oh, it can't be a Phil Cook movie if we're not sweating to death in summer or freezing our asses off in winter. Whatever it is, you guarantee you will not be comfortable.
Hey, you got to make the environment somehow.
Yeah.
You might as well use what you got.
Yeah.
Since you brought up Jeff the Jumper, let us talk a little bit, if we could, about the ragmen and the shadow men. The eyeball effects on the shadow guys. They have this thing that their eyes do that at first I wasn't quite sure I had seen it correctly, but it's like their pupils, not even their pupils, but like their irises dilate in and out until they cover their entire eyes. It's a really cool and off-putting in all the best ways effect. Is that I assume it's imposed digitally. How did you do that?
It was a nightmare.
Oh boy.
And it was digital. And it was painstakingly rotoscoped one frame at a time. And it's a lot of dialogue. So it's a lot of eyeballs to sit there and do that with. And I tried some shots are done one way and other shots are done another way. But And technically speaking, they kind of go in and out. And partially, I had them go in and out because, like, oh, if they oscillate, they don't have to do it all the time. On one level, it's kind of a cheat. But then I thought, but it's kind of neat because they're kind of like breathing and pulsing. So you take a deficit and you try to make it something that works for you.
And it also makes it look like there are shadows on their eyes, which, if they're going to be the shadow men, then let's make them shadowy in this case.
Yeah.
Also, one of the first notes that I had about when the Despiser shows up in the background was I just wrote down shadows from Babylon 5. We definitely had some really good uses of that digital shadow effect going on during the bad guy scenes that made them genuinely creepy in places. Especially the guy who plays, I guess, the first incarnation of the main shadow figure, who keeps jumping in between human forms as he gets tired of them, which was also a touch that I loved. They make a compelling set of, I'm trying to think how to put it exactly. They make a compelling set of bad guy conscripts, I guess, is what I'm going for.
The ragmen are such a good sort of like they do feel like the orcs in Lord of the Rings, except almost like more wretched, more sort of wrung out. Like you can't really see their faces, and they sort of come at them, the heroes, in these hordes of just these gray robes. And I think there's only like 5 or 6 actors, but they're very cleverly cut between to make them look like they're this onslaught of just fungible, soulless enemies. Again, it's very video gamey, which in 1998/2003 felt very vibrant, I thought.
Well, thank you. I mean, one of the reasons was it was just easier to cast extras. Like it didn't matter if it was the same guy,
Hmm.
with the exception of the ones who had a line or two. I mean, quite frankly, we were always disappointed with the Ragmen. I mean, I didn't mind the costumes themselves. I really wish could have been more distressed in that sort of Terry Gilliam filth,
Hmm.
just, and, and
Yeah.
that's the thing about filth, by the way. Filth is not easy to do. People got to be filthy for weeks, and you got
That's
to keep
it.
adding the filth. And then you got to clean the filth up at the end of the day.
And if
I
you
know
want it to have any kind of continuity, you have to make it the same filth from day to day.
good, exactly. That's one of the things where I really wish that was totally budgetary. I just wish they had in that sort of Pirates of the Caribbean. I love how nasty the pirates were in the first one. They were all just rotted teeth, whatever, warts and filth and dirt and what have you. And that's just the whole skill set anyway, that's my own point
And
of view.
also
I'm
you
glad
have
you
to
guys feel they worked, but
Yeah, you have to make trade-offs too. Like you had talked about how this was a really fun film set, and I think had you gotten into more like the comparison that I want to make here is something like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, also filmed for a shoestring budget. They did go all out on making everything filthy because that's the kind of movie they were making. And it was also not a fun shoot. Like the actors literally went insane inside their costumes because they smelled so bad and because they had to spend so much time basically encased in their own dried sweat and in some cases their own dried blood. That's not a fun movie shoot. It's a great movie and it's a incredibly atmospheric movie because of that, but I don't think anybody has good memories of the time that they spent filming the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And I
Whereas,
don't
as
think
Andrew
that's
said
the energy you
before,
want for Despiser. Yeah.
yeah, this is such an
oh yeah.
infectiously fun movie. And if you've got
Well,
everybody worried about preserving continuity in their makeup effects all the time, especially when you're already dealing with budgetary concerns, I don't know that you get that same sort of infectious action adventure fun that you have through the entire movie. And I think sacrificing that would have been the wrong choice.
it's interesting. I'm actually in touch with every cast member from Despiser.
Oh
Uh,
man.
and they've been following some of this stuff. And you guys are aware we did this Kickstarter
Hmm.
for our latest film, and I've actually cast some of the people from Despiser in this latest film, which is I'm going to call it Despiser adjacent story. But yeah, so they don't hate me. So I guess that's nice.
There you go. It's always nice to have people willing to work with you again and again.
Yeah.
Good point to get to. One person we've not really talked about so far is the lead, Mark Redfield himself,
He looks
who,
distractingly like my friend Joe, which is not his fault, but my friend Joe is not an actor, and I kept being surprised to see my friend Joe suddenly appear in Purgatory. Again,
That's
not his
funny.
fault, not anybody's fault, but I guess it helps that he's got that kind of everyman look about him.
Yeah.
my main thing when I look at him is he looks almost exactly halfway between Bruce Campbell and Kyle MacLachlan to
Oh
me.
my God, you're right, he does.
And James Cagney.
And James Cat. Oh God, yeah, I haven't even thought of that one.
James Cagney. Oh, he'd love that because Mark is such a fan of old films and old movies. And it's interesting because Mark had been an actor and he stage and what have you, and he just loved old stuff. And here I am making this digital movie. And I just, on one level, I could just feel him cringing at the idea of digital effects and what have you. But yeah, no, he and I had worked on a game. He was doing voiceover for the Swords of Shannara. So there are a lot of gaming companies here in Washington, D.C. before they all got consolidated. There were a lot of sort of small, I'm not going to call them quite mom and pops, but small gaming companies back in the 90s.
Hmm.
They're all consolidated now by mega corporations. And we had shot a animatic or cinematic, an intro for a game, and Mark was doing one of the voices and whatever. And he and I just had a lot of common interests and worked on some films, and we're, in the early days, peripherally. We never knew each other, but we were in the same orbit. And we ended up working together. And, casting film in our town, because I don't have casting agents and we're doing non-union things, so I'm not able to tap into that massive data pool. Not to say that Washington is a hotbed of high-end screen talent anyway, because most people go to New York or they go to Hollywood. Casting was always difficult. We were having a hard time casting Gordon, and then I remember Mark, and yeah, he got on board, man. It was fun, and it's interesting because he didn't drive back then. So I said, oh, as soon as I found that out, because he's in Baltimore. Baltimore is like 50 miles from Washington. I thought, oh man, that's going to be a problem, right? Because we were doing a lot of shooting. He's got to drive up and down. I don't know how that's going to work. And so he said, I'll tell you what, you can donate my salary to getting me a hotel room, which was close to the set. We'd pick him up on the way. And so he was basically held captive in a hotel room for the couple of weeks of which we shot because there wasn't anywhere he could go because he didn't have a car. And Dan Poole, who played the first Shadow Man, the crazy one, the blonde one, would drive him. And he ended up on the show because he was very physical and a stunt, just a physical guy. He could take falls and do all kinds of spills and things. And that's how I met Dan. And yeah, Mark brought just a lovely gravitas to the character. I mean, I'll be quite honest, it isn't initially how I conceived the character, but then he brought so much to it that it's funny. Not that this is meant to be derogatory at all, but like when you write a screenplay, in theory, this is as good as it's going to get, right? It's untainted by the reality of production and budget and finance and whatever. I mean, you're writing within those constraints. It's like, okay, this is it. And then when you go into production, shot by shot, scene by scene, you destroy that vision and you end up with the movie. And hopefully it's congruent, sometimes better, sometimes a compromise or whatever, but you end up, that screenplay does its job. It's a blueprint, and you end up with the reality of a movie, which of course has to survive production, shooting, post-production, editing, and in theory, if you've still got a story, a coherent, 90-minute thing at the end of it, it goes out into the world, and it transforms, which it's supposed to, and that with all kinds of extra influence and input from all the other talents you bring on board. And Mark was not who I initially conceived as the character, but then he brought his own brand of his gravitas to it and did a really beautiful job, I thought.
He's got a great voice. It's kind of
he's got a great voice. Yeah,
it's kind of a Kevin Kline type
he's got that
timbre to it.
Smoker's voice, and he still does a lot of audiobooks and types of things. So he's definitely leveraging the strength of that awesome voice.
Were you going to say something, Andrew?
Oh no, just that's it's funny what you were saying, Phil, about the script being sort of the perfect version of what you had in your head. We were actually just having a conversation much like this on our group chat the other day about the character in the Terry Pratchett story Soul Music. He's like this sort of very stuffy sort of professorial like teacher of music at a music university who never listens to music. He only ever reads the sheet music because then it's untainted by the sort of like all the saliva and all the air being blown through these instruments and ruining it. And that's always been I've always thought of that character because the way I think about art, like not just music but everything really, is like almost exactly the opposite. The thing that gives it life is the way that it sort of becomes ragged and a bit, dirty and, stuffed up by the process of coming out into the universe. So it's really sort of validating to hear you talk about it that way.
Well, that's the human part of it, right? We want it sloppy, we want it messy, we want it heroic, but because we're all sloppy, messy, trying to be heroes in our real lives. And I think that level of authenticity, if you can get there, I'm not necessarily saying that we do get there, but if you can get there, that resonates with people. I think that's one of the reasons why this film, I mean, it's not a huge audience, but it's found a niche audience after a quarter century. And it really does, I think, when you look at films, horror films, or any kind of genre film, really, how many of them really survive the test of time with decades? And that's the ones, you will always be able to watch Casablanca because it is so authentic to its era. You will always be able to watch Wizard of Oz with the full understanding that these are midgets in costumes and great painted backdrops and, monkeys on wires. But it doesn't matter. It is so evocative of its era. And you can say that about certain, because there are a lot of crappy movies made in the 90s, but the ones that people still seek out still work. They still work. And there's something about them. And I think by dumb luck or what have you, Despiser will always be like, it's people still, well, I have sometimes a hard time, like Doctor Who, some of the classic Doctor, which of course I loved as a kid. Mm-hmm. And I'm not entirely sure they age so well, the early ones, but there's Babylon 5, I tried, or I revisited that after, 20 years? It still works. It still works.
And it works despite the fact that there are places where it looks like the set's going to fall over if they blow on it too hard.
Yeah.
We've been binging on classic Star Trek. And those first 2 seasons, it still works. The actors and the writers put so much in, particularly the first 2 seasons. The 3rd season now all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's really going off the rails.
Even the 3rd season's got its highlights, though.
Oh, it does. It's got some great episodes. I'm watching a few of them now. It's like, I'm sorry, that writer does not know the character. That is not the character. That is not James Cook. James Cook would never do this thing he's doing. And so my wife and I are watching these. It's like, oh my God, this person does. Because I think they got rid of the showrunner, the main showrunner in the 3rd season. Because the show was going to be canceled. And a lot of people jumped ship and whatever. And all of a sudden you realize people are writing these characters don't understand these characters at a certain point. And so then it gets a little cringe and classic bad cliche track. Anyway, the long and the short is, when that show worked, it worked. And it will work forever. The passion between Kirk and Spock and, 60 years later, hey man, those stories still rock. A number of them. Anyway.
They really do. A thing that does not come out in a screenplay, aside from, the interpretations of the lines, is also in a screenplay, there is no sound. And there are a couple of other details about the film that I want to make sure that we have time to get to. And one of them is the soundscape of the film, which I got very excited about in a lot of different ways. I love the scene where Gordon is sketching the Despiser's tower, I guess, before he even really knows what it is. And you can hear the pencil scratches combined with his breathing and his heartbeat. And it was a fun, like, kind of suspense-building Telltale Heart moment. I also loved the dance remix Gregorian chant soundtrack.
I was going to ask about the soundtrack.
For a couple of different
very...
So I made an immediate, very nerdy association with the Gregorian chant stuff. So, okay, I'm going to get very nerdy for a moment. In John Milton's Paradise Lost...
Okay.
There is a point in book 1 where the narrator talks about the music in hell and how the music in hell is like a reflection of the music that you would hear in heaven, but broken. Like it's wrong. It's a little bit discordant and unrecognizable in different ways. And I was like, so in purgatory, you get like a light version of that, where it's the music you would hear in heaven, which I guess, depending on your interpretation, is either Gregorian chant or EDM. But they're mixed together in this strange way that nobody would ever think of.
Techno-Gregorian chant.
Techno-Gregorian chant, exactly.
Yeah, I'll be quite honest. That was the thing. I told you I hadn't made a movie in 10 years after Invader, after our Menachem Golan crash and burn thing. And I was working on films for telecom, videos for telecom, and I came across this music library from FirstCom, and I came across those tracks, and I thought, oh my God, this is really cool music. So I called up the company and said, what would it take for me to license these tracks? And it was more attainable than having an original score written for the film. And as soon as I realized I could secure that score, which I think I secured it back then for $5,000 for universal rights, non-broadcast. And I said, oh my God, I'm making the movie now. Because I could just see it. with the music tracks. Because I actually, believe it or not, I mean, the script had been written, but when I heard the music tracks and I realized I had this technology, the 3D, and I had the ability to use digital technology and digital editing, first time on that too, right? We're not editing on film. Film is behind us. It's like everything came together. I said, we're making this picture. So it did, believe it or not, it was the music that actually kicked me off the couch and said, we're making this picture. Which people have been asking about this music like crazy. So I made it available for the first time ever as a Kickstarter award for those guys who wanted the score of Despiser or The Road or whatever it's entire. So it's finally going to be available to those folks anyway.
Fantastic.
I'm going to be keeping an eye out for that for sure. What were my other notes?
I have a couple of just lines written down, lines that made me crack up, starting with "you narrow-minded, uncreative butt plug," which I will not be saying to my boss. Though I'm sure all of us will be thinking it on occasion.
I don't know. I am recently, as of like just a couple of weeks ago, newly unemployed, sadly. So I kind of wish I'd used that one in the time I had available to me.
It's funny. I come up with these insults, and then people go, "Wait, what? Wait, is that too much?" And I got to tell you, I end up pulling them out often because, like, I don't know, maybe that's a bridge too far. That one somehow survived. I've had
it kind of works because the character then on his trip home says to himself, like, "Did I really call him a butt plug?"
Yeah. I've had people go like, I've had other insults and things in there that were so specific to my family. And then, and then I would say them on the set. People go, "I don't even know what you're talking about." It's like, really? Does it like? And my feeling now, I realize, it doesn't matter that you don't know. You're going to know that it means something to somebody, and it's not good.
Yep, exactly.
Even if you don't understand the reference, whatever it is, now you're going to look it up.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like, we had this one Momo, like the people. Although I think Momo actually might be a Scottish term. Like, I think we call them their momos in some film. It's like, what's a momo? It's like, trust me, it doesn't really matter if you know what it is, but some people know what it is.
Not familiar with that one. I'll need to ask my folks.
Let's see. I also loved the point where the first Shadow Man describes I can't remember if it was the ragmen or if it was, but he describes them as chiggers. He says, "You're like chiggers." And then does he eat a chigger?
He eats one.
That was so delightfully disgusting.
Yeah.
And speaking of delightfully, well, maybe not disgusting, but mediocre, I love the fact that the default food in Purgatory is canned beans.
Canned beans. Yeah,
I think I circled that a few times, just like Purgatory food equals canned beans. That ain't evil. That's beans.
It feels very Old West, doesn't it? It feels sort of very post-Blazing Saddles.
And also just uninspiring in exactly the right way.
Oh, one thing, I will kick myself forever if I don't ask about this when we have the chance. The bit with the troll doll, the whole business with the troll doll that torments Mark through the middle of the movie. How did that conversation go when you were talking to Mark Radfield on set?
That was going to be my question too.
Oh, for him? Well, I'll tell you, the troll dolls, my sister used to have them as a kid, and I didn't like them. They were creepy. They really unnerved me. They were like really popular in the 60s, and I always hated them. They always gave me the heebie-jeebies. And so that's why I felt, that's how they ended up in the movie. As far as telling Mark that, I don't know. I don't remember what I said to him. He just, between the two of us, we figured it out. I mean, he came up with some fun little comic bits, and I'll be quite honest, I don't remember how that went down.
No, it's just one of those creative decisions where you just see it nowadays, and like I just wish I was a fly on the wall for whatever decision led to this coming into existence.
Well, the funny thing on a shoot day though, I am under such stress because I'm doing the lighting and the audio and the camera. Basically like 5 or 6 different jobs. So for me, at the end of the day, if I got to the day and got the pages shot, it's just a blur because it's like, okay, great, good. We're going to do this, and you set it up, and like it's working enough to go, we're moving on to the next thing. So for me, it's just a blur. Unfortunately, and this is all kind of when the digital still cameras started coming out. One of the actors taking some behind the scenes is great because I'm looking at it like, wow, I'm so glad you took this because I do not remember my role in it, because I'm so into just trying to get through the day and get the pages and not get anybody hurt and get them fed and then tomorrow it starts all over again.
It's a little like your wedding day, but a lot more prolonged, where I think half the reason people get wedding photographers is so they can remember the fact that they had a wedding in the first place, because you don't remember the day as it goes by.
Yeah, and then the other analogy I use is childbirth. It's like you went through hell, and you would never want to do it ever again, but at the end you have a beautiful baby, right? And so you tend to thank God, right? You suppress the fact that you just passed a bowling ball, but you got my baby at the end, and that's the part you remember.
That is very true. Extremely true. Speaking also of surprisingly beautiful things, I really loved, in a way I don't think I was supposed to, the spider bug that Gordon and Jake argue about whether or not they're going to mash with a 2x4.
Yeah.
I didn't want them to mash him either. He's so cute.
Yeah.
It's very John Carpenter's The Thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
but, kind of weirdly adorable, like
but
you
with a sweet little Monsters Inc. reject face.
Yeah. Well, that was on purpose. I mean, Corey Collins designed that creature, but the whole idea was, really? You wanted me to beat on it? Yeah, trust me, you don't want these things running around.
Yeah, well, because then the giant worm comes out, and we figure out why we don't want these things running around.
The mama bug. That's right. Yeah. Well, it was meant to be kind of fun and silly in that regard.
Well, it worked.
That's it. And just generally the landscape of hell, you get these amazing extreme wide shots where you've got the battleships and these fields of crucified bodies and missiles in the background. It's very sort of heavy metal album cover, which I'm all about.
Love heavy metal. I love that.
Nice one.
And again, that was the liberty of the digital thing, and maybe I leaned into it too much, or maybe people can get it now. I loved going from the micro to the macro or whatever, where you could start on somebody and then in a shot pull out and give them context. Like, it's all about this, right? It's all about the talking face and the passion and then you expand the world and then you give it context. And do you buy it? Well, I loved the heavy metal movie. It was just equally strange and
the pterodactyl flight. It's very much in the same sort of vein as that, isn't it?
And great music too, right? You got to have the great music.
Blue Oyster Cult and Black Sabbath and all those.
Yeah. So it's a combination of music and spectacle and passion.
I buy it exactly as much and in the same way that I buy it when I'm on one of those immersive dark rides at Universal.
Oh.
And I love those.
Cool.
I know some people claim that I know some people say that those give them motion sickness, and that's fine, but I love going on those dark rides because they're so cheesy in exactly the way that I want. And they can also be really thrilling at times. And just with the zooms and the pans, I felt at times like I was the one in motion in the same way that you do on a dark ride or on an immersive roller coaster. And yeah, that's an experience that I love. Not, again, because it is in any way realistic, but precisely because it is not realistic. Because you are in an entirely artificial world and you just get to enjoy it. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're going to go back to the real world in a little while, but this is just a fun trip into the bounds of somebody else's imagination. And that's so cool.
It's what I call fun spooky or happy spooky.
Yeah.
Almost in that Tim Burton kind of way. It's like, okay, yeah, it's a walking corpse, but it's all, and we're going to have a little spooky and a little creepy and we are going to have some drama here. But at the end of the day, it's all going to work out. There's something comforting in that kind of adventure, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I am not making Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, right? I don't think I could do that, or the torture porn movies. I I love the idea of having these adventures and going to these worlds and having your heroes and having them sort of struggle and get through it, and things kind of work out well for them. And maybe we lose a few on the way, and it's a little melancholy sadness, but yay, we got through it. That's my old-fashioned storytelling sensibility.
There was that moment on the bridge when I thought for a moment that Carl was going to die, and I was scribbling down in my notes, "Don't you dare kill Carl. Don't you dare kill Carl." And then he gets by, and then we lose Charlie. And then I had a moment of like, no, that's worse. Because now you saved Carl, but you took away Charlie.
It's one of those moments where shooting that actress, Tara Bulkins, and she was like 20. And she's on this set on the blue screen, and we're all sitting there, and she's emoting and getting shot. We're all like, oh no, we're all gonna cry. I mean, we're shooting it, and we're feeling so. My Jeff the Jumper, who was my sound guy, he's a former Navy SEAL. He's in all these films I'm in. But I felt really bad. Like, let's go give her a hug afterwards, because we're shooting it, right? We haven't even put in the stuff yet, but we got into it. Whatever. Bunch of senile people on the set.
I think a comparison. One of the commentary tracks on the Blu-ray was let's see, Bill Van Ryn and Sam Panico. They made the comparison to like a D&D party. This sort of like almost like a group of friends playing a tabletop role-playing game. I think that was my frame of reference for the kind of group dynamic with the with the various people pulled out of time and space and forced to sort of form this ragtag group.
Well, I love the fact that you guys get this, because I have, believe me, you can imagine some of the comments I've gotten over the years on this film. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. This is an abomination. Oh my God. You can imagine.
Pish posh. Some people need to watch more bad movies, is what I'm hearing from this.
Yeah.
So some people just need to sort of expand their aesthetic horizons. Is always been my kind of take on these things.
Well,
but in any case, as you well know at this point, even though it is much easier said than done, you kind of got to ignore the people who don't get it, because they're never gonna get it.
Well, there you go. And that's my thing. It's like you can't sell somebody something they don't want. They were never the audience in the first place. But eventually, and that's the test of time. That if the films don't get lost, eventually they do find their audience. I mean, even classic Trek, went on to become a multi-billion-dollar industry, but in its day, people didn't quite know what to do with it, and sort of let it just run its course, and then it becomes this juggernaut that goes on. But it took time. It took the repeats in the 70s after school for that truly to find its audience, because it never went away. It never went away. It never went off the air.
And one of the beautiful things about the internet is that it has made it easier for works of art to find their people who maybe wouldn't have found them in an earlier age.
Oh, I absolutely agree. This would have been lost. Would have been gone in the discard bin at the video store, into the dump, and that would have been that. And the past 6 months, the amount of attention this silly little film has gathered is really it's fun. It's gratifying, which is one of the reasons that inspired us to make this film we just did. It's like, well, because I was actually thinking I was done, and because it's very hard, to say the least, particularly as one gets older and all the responsibilities pull you in all these different directions. But yeah, we're almost done with this picture right now. I think I have one more shoot day, and then it's just finishing up post-production. So hopefully it'll be done.
This is something I was actually going to mention, is generally at the end of these podcasts, we have sort of a little spot set aside for the guest to sort of do a bit of self-promotion and plug what they're working on at present. And we know full well that you have something you're looking to plug, Phil. So do you want to tell us a little bit about Echoes of Dread?
Well, Echoes of Dread is a contemporary film about two young YouTubers who have a fairly popular channel doing, pottery and visiting practically haunted mansions, or just anything that might appeal to audience people like you. They're very charismatic, kind of fun folks. And they go to interview an archaeologist and they end up in a world of shit. in way over their head. Be careful what you wish for.
As you do.
And so they go on this journey, and as I said, she's on some of the same characters as Despiser. I mean, it's not a full-on purgatorial adventure in another world, but there were things that were left unresolved in the way Despiser need to be cleaned up, and these people inadvertently sort of stumble into that, and it's a very different kind of thing. But I think the characters are very likable. It's fun. It's crazy. So I have no idea what people are going to think of this thing. But we found a really good cast.
That's awesome. And I know Andrew and I are both excited.
We're going to be there day one.
This would also normally be the point of this endeavor where I would cagily ask Andrew whether or not he thinks I really liked the film that he assigned me for this month. But I think he knows full well and knew full well when he assigned it to me that I was going to like this movie.
Oh, yay. That's great.
Yeah, no, I had so much fun watching this last night. It's always so... You have children. I'm sure you remember the days of them being very young and very full of energy and quite exhausting by the end of the day. Yeah. And so the end of the day is when I have time to watch movies. But that's very unfortunate because also by the end of the day, I'm very tired. So it can sometimes be a chore to get through a movie. Right. At no point during this movie did I feel like I was going to fall asleep, despite the fact that I was watching it in my bed so that my husband could use the main TV.
Oh, that's fun. You know, one thing where I felt we might have hit onto something. A relative of mine, he had a little boy at the time. He had a DVD of Despiser, and he played it every day. Every day. And it's like, wonderful. Oh, he's like really into it. It's like, we're not making him. No, this was his go-to. You know, he was probably like 8 or 9 or 10. Like, this was his go-to thing. So it's like, really? That's not me. That's not, hey, make sure your kid watches my video every day. No, this kid kept going, and he would talk about it. No, man, it's fun. I got it. Whatever. It appealed to him. I thought, hey, if kids, because when my kids were little, back in the days of VHS, they would put in Little Mermaid and Dumbo and watch them. Like, as soon as it was done, they'd hit the rewind button.
Oh, yeah.
And do it all over again. And the fact that this boy was doing it to despise him. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe there is something there after all.
Yeah, and this is also one way that you know that you've succeeded. There's a line from actually a song from a musical that I believe is called Title of Show. But the chorus of the song is, I'd rather be 9 people's favorite thing than 100 people's 9th favorite thing. And so if you found those 9 people where it's their favorite thing, you got it.
Yeah, well, it's fun. And this is the part where I actually do find our social media and Facebook, despite, some people have negative reactions because I don't get involved in politics, even though I'm in politics as a business. I don't get involved in politics on Facebook. What I love about Facebook is finding your tribe of people. Mm-hmm. And people are into stuff that's like, I didn't even remember. People would remember the thing I was into as a kid. And they're all like, and they're in it, man. I mean, they're in it. Like, way in it. And you kind of touch base like, oh my God, that toy thing that I always wanted as a kid that I never got, he's got it. You sort of get to work out the niche and the fun detail. And the other fun thing about that is visual effects artists are all older than I am now, that I was in awe of. These are guys who worked in Industrial Light and Magic and on John Carpenter films and Alien and whatever. I'm friends with now on Facebook. Like, and we're sort of like, and then they'll see some of the stuff that I've done and go, oh, dude, that's really cool. I mean, not that they're aware of it now. And it's interesting to find you're sort of having a dialogue. They're all retired now, but they get the work you're doing, and your work was inspired by the work that they're doing, and you're actually in touch with them. And that is just so exciting and fun to sort of get that conversation going.
Mm-hmm. And also, because of things like this, we got to have this conversation with you, which was incredibly exciting for both of us.
This is great.
Exactly. This was such a privilege.
Yeah,
I really did. I liked
talk.
Yeah. And I liked this movie a lot. It's like I kept trying to think of what is this like and failing to come up with anything that it is exactly like. And what I eventually came up with is like it's Orpheus and Eurydice meets Mad Max meets Who Killed Captain Alex, which
Oh,
let's
you
talk about
gotta
a
do
combination
your,
of things walking
you
into
gotta
a
write
bar
a
that I never thought
review
I'd
for me
find.
See, it was the Isaac Nabuana connection that made me want to recommend this to you in the first place, Mandy. I know that you love Who Killed Captain Alex. I thought this would scratch a similar
It
itch.
really does. And Phil, if you're not familiar with Isaac Nabuana, I cannot recommend his films highly enough.
I'm going to make a note. I don't even know how to spell those words.
He
Isaac.
is he is a Ugandan filmmaker who decided
Oh,
he wanted to be Quentin Tarantino and did not let the fact that he had no access to money or modern equipment get in his way.
Oblanda?
Nabuana.
Labuana. Interesting.
I'll send you a link.
Yeah, yeah. Very
Yeah,
cool. This was a lot of fun.
it very much was. Like Phil, this was an absolute pleasure. Like, couldn't have asked for a better guest to come on. Thanks so much. And yeah, thanks very much, Phil. And thanks everyone for your time. We will be back with alternate ending next week, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.